could conquer the night if I can make it. If I try to draw the red light, I could run through the fire. I could conquer the night if I can make it. If I try to draw the red, conquer the night if I can make it. If I try to draw the red light, I could run through the fire. I could conquer the night if I can make it. If I try to draw the red,
thinking that I could have done something, but now I'm left with an empty heart. No making amends, no waking up beside you and holding you till we forget it all. How could I know there was no second chances? Like dominoes, my life got really scattered. You couldn't keep the door shut, and now the frostbite's creeping in. 'Cause I've been stone cold since you left me here. So come home, why won't you reappear? Things that I said came out totally wrong. Can't speak of the truth when it's tainted. I fell into a big black hole. It got me stone cold. Wizard of Oz can't undo what I've done. Completely out of luck this time. I'm stuck in reverse. I gotta get away now, but I can't seem to take the lead. Oh baby, myself hoping that you'll find your way back to me. 'Cause I've been stone cold since you left me here. So come home, why won't you reappear? Things that I said came out totally wrong. Can't speak of the truth when it's tainted. I fell into a big black hole. It got me stone cold. You got me stone cold. It got me stone cold. You got me stone cold.
Welcome everyone to the final installation of Industry Insights. It's a Friday. It's a day that we can all kind of relax, take a step back, and just have a little bit of fun. Today I'm joined by Santa here again, and today we have the one, the only Fluke. Welcome, guys.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Wow. What a pleasure to be here. I like how you're like we had a week and we're gonna relax on the Friday with the least professional person in esports. Hello, it's me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing, and it's quite nice that. Sorry, I was just checking. I was traumatized that the sound isn't going to be working, but it's all good. So, as you know, we usually start off with the same question every time because it is I guess one of the most important ones. Kick off with, and it's how did you certainly get involved in esports in general or in Siege especially?
I bullied my friends to do a 10-man. My start in esports is strange because I think it's different to everyone else in the Siege scene in that I came from YouTube originally. And I did a lot of like Twitch stuff on YouTube before, but not on Siege, like variety stuff. And I was really bored one day and I convinced 10 of my friends to like, oh, jump into like a server. Let's just mess around, like really low tier, stupid stuff. And it was like fun and it was silly. But I'd always wanted to try casting and I always wanted to like give it a go. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. It'll be fun. And what happened was we started to build like a little community of people that like every week we were doing this little 10-man's stream of like 3 maps and pissing around. Not in any relation to the esports scene at all. Like when I did this like 4 years ago, I wasn't even watching like esports. This was like the year one stuff. And a clip got posted on Reddit, on like the actual Rainbow Six Reddit, and it got a lot of interest. And then from then on, loads of other people wanted to get involved. And then because of that, I started like getting involved with the esports scene. I applied to be an ESL community caster and I got it. And it just kind of went from there. Hasn't stopped yet.
So what was it that wanted to make you get involved in Siege over things like Counter-Strike or Call of Duty?
I suck at Counter-Strike. I was a console gamer until I came to uni. I never really played CS growing up. So like kind of getting into a mouse and keyboard shooter, there wasn't a huge amount that I had experience with. Like I was Halos, I was, OG Call of Duty stuff. And then Siege kind of came along. I remember it was at like a Eurogamer, and the game that I was super excited about was Star Wars Battlefront. And then I had no idea what Siege was. And we going around to all the booths playing all the games, and I went to the Star Wars Battlefront. We all know how that game turned out. I don't need to rag on it. But my excitement went down from what was a 4-hour queue. And then it was Siege, and I just really enjoyed it. And I didn't know this at the time. Matt Andrews was there, apparently, casting the games, which is weird. So now I think that we've worked together. But it was like from then on, I'd always like had passion for the game, and I would always go back to it. And I don't know what it is about it, but I can't stop playing it. I think it's just always. It's maybe the first game that I've fully thrown myself into that's like a multiplayer game with a community.
And especially wasn't your first proper dive into your Siege commentating at a top tier, wasn't it OGA Pit?
Yeah, it was. And the reason I got my first OGA was so I had done community cast and stuff for a few months at this point, and I'd started to get known in that there wasn't many English speaking community casters at this point. Like there was amazing ones across a lot of different nationalities. We obviously, people that are still in the scene. You have all of the OG French guys who I always have a lot of love for, because like when I first had no idea what I was doing and was like asking questions about the rule book, and like community casting, no one would answer apart from the French guys, and they were like really supportive and friendly. So all of them, and they're the ones that are on the scene now. Like I love them a lot. But there wasn't many English names. And Sternab was like in contact about OGA, had done the first season. The second season, they at the time, and again, huge amount of love for Sidoni. I wholeheartedly don't think I would be here if it wasn't for him giving me opportunities with this and CCS. He said to me at the time, he was like, "I've seen your work, and I'm really interested. Like, I would love to get you out there. Like, you're like my choice for this." And I'd never done anything proper. It was like 3 weeks in Croatia. I was like, "Yes, like this is amazing." Did it. Maybe a year and a half later, 2 years later, where both of us are settled in our careers, like he's smashing it, coaching, running CCS, all of this stuff, I'm casting. I find out that he'd asked like 4 or 5 other people before he got to me, and they'd all like not been able to do it. So when he said I was his first choice, after a few other people, like I was a 6th line first choice. But yes, OGA Pit was my first break, and the first time I got noticed, I think.
And that's great. I mean, a lot of people, you know, especially with the new EUL roster, it's what something we were talking about yesterday, of something different, something apart from, especially where you got started to where you are now with the EUL. And when it all changed, when we went to a studio format to, you know, all pretty much just for, especially for multiple regions, just kind of knowing, you know, the kicks and tarot. And then suddenly we're just introduced to a massive cast of people that have come so far. And it was a really nice kind of refreshing moment, especially with a bunch of new faces. And with that, especially of all of the years that you've been in esports with casting or other things, what would you have to say are some of your favorite moments?
Ooh, that's tough. Okay. From my personal like experience, like my career, my favorite moments. Okay, I'm gonna have to go with the stuff that stands out to me. So the first cast where I was ever like, you know, holy shit, these guys are good, was I casted an SI quals match that was like open for community casters, and I was doing it at like 5 a.m. because it was an NA one, and it was, I think it was Cloud9 versus Mouse at the time. So it was the Cloud9 when like Goddess was on there, and like having like names like Goddess and, you know, Lax and Fox in the lobby, it was like, this is so cool. So that's always going to be something that like, because that was the first like, oh my god, you know, the LANs, my first LAN experience as well, I think is always going to be a big one, which was UK, and kind of, you know, showing up and being able to walk behind like the curtains, and it's like, it's terrifying doing the first time, and then once you've done it once and you realize how laid back a lot of it is, and that stress goes away, it's a much more relaxed environment. But like, you know, I think your first of anything, like your first LAN experience, your first time kind of getting a call up for something, the first time being noticed on like a Reddit thread is weird. Like it doesn't, you know, it doesn't happen to a lot of people too often.
Yeah.
It like sometimes casting, if you're doing a good job, you'll just like coast along on the rate, like, but then you do like 1 or 2 moments, and then it's like, oh, cool, okay, people do like what I do, like, any others? I guess, okay, going to Paris, maybe my favorite. It was amazing. It was, I was meeting, you know, Milos for the first time, Hassan, and the others I'd met before. I didn't care about them. Apart from Gio. Gio was the first time. But I think being in a studio experience, it was the first time I'd ever worked in a studio experience where representatives from Ubisoft were there. Apart from the UK events, where it's like they're like these were the people that were from the esports team. These were, you know, like the names that you see on Twitter that are organizing the events and all of this stuff, and the big events, and kind of being on their radar. I guess that was like, and then just being able to fuck around in a set in Paris for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So what's one thing then you still want to achieve within sort of casting? One event you still really want to take part in?
It's got to be SI. I you know, it's the crown jewel on the Siege calendar. And I think, and I've never been to an SI. Before I was up until about October of last year, I was working a full-time job as well as casting. So it's similar to like Tim, where Ace, where it's like we work all day and then we cast in the evening, like a really shit Batman. And that was like all the time. So when these big events would happen internationally, unless I could financially reason with it, so unless it was things like I was going out to work for a couple weeks and I could use my holiday, I would use my holiday at work to go and work somewhere else. And it's paid off now, but it's, so when things like SI would happen, I would have loved to have gone to them, but I just couldn't justify like going out there and taking that time off work because I needed that time off work in case work of casting came up. So SI is still like I wanna meet everybody. I wanna see faces. Like there's so many people out in the Siege scene that I yet to meet, and I need to.
So one from the community here as well. Who do you see your biggest influences in the esports and casting scene?
Ooh, that's tough. I kind of I envy a lot of my coworkers. And I think that's part of the industry is like, when like Jackie comes up with a line, I'm like, fuck, how does he do it? Like how come I missed that line? How has he been able to thread that together? When you hear like Blue kick into gear on his play-by-play, or like obviously just the in Terran kicks, you don't really need to say too much about because they've really defined and like raised the bar in it. And it also extends to like beyond just the cast. So things like the behind the scenes work and the kind of communication and the like CEO world of Dez and like his networking abilities and on top of his ability as a caster, like there's not really like one, and this is like a non-answer. This is me being like, yeah, I love them all, everybody, thank you. But it is true. Like I wouldn't say there's like one person that I'm like, I want to be like them, but all of them I'm very much like, okay, that is what they're really good at. And you've got the real great stat heads, you've got the real great kind of talkers, play-by-players, the communicators, the whatever. And I guess it's just like trying to be an amalgamation of those ideas as a person.
Yeah, that's fair enough, and especially with that so many people in the scene, especially you kind of got to grow out yourself, especially be your own person.
Yeah,
and
if I found out there was someone else like me on the scene, I would kind of be a bit disappointed, and I'd be like, well, what do I have to change now? Like, where do I have to go? I like to think I bring something not unique because everybody's unique, but something a little bit different from what my colleagues do. But different personalities make a great broadcast. Like in any medium, you need your like straight characters to kind of bounce across the wilder, wackier characters. That's the basic of a comedy duo: is the straight man and the slapstick man, and those two kind of personalities mesh. Esports takes itself very seriously sometimes, and I guess you've got characters like Jackie, or like me, or like Valley, who are trying to push that. I think if I was to say three names who I feel I'm similar to in a way, is we're trying to like mess around and prove that you don't have to take yourself so seriously all the time. But Siege is great for that. I will say, I don't think there's anyone that's working on the top scene right now that isn't bringing the broadcast up.
Yeah. And something, I mean, everyone's got a different story, and especially, you were saying how you came from community casting, taking that jump to OGA, then going to Paris, and everyone, even the people who have done, same who's done SI, things like that, whether it's you going to Paris being like, fuck, this is real, or is there any story behind you becoming who you are today of it kind of either the moment it kind of hit you or kicked in, or
a couple of my colleagues would agree with this. My camera will freeze occasionally for a second for dramatic reasons, obviously. A couple of my colleagues would agree with this. I'm very self-depreciating about my work. I'm very much like, oh, if that was the last gig I've done, I'm done. No, I think I never want to settle and feel like I'm comfortable and settle and feel like, because for me it's a performance job, and a performance job is you have to keep stepping it up, like you have to keep bringing yourself to it. The fact that I'm on a radar enough to get the call up to some of this work and being invited to do things like the Challenger League stuff with the UK guys at the time, and being invited to step up and do certain events. I think it's more just like I I don't know if I'm comfortable to say that, yeah, I'm like, I've made it. I'm like solid, because I think it's still a grind, and I always think it's a work, and you've always got to keep grinding. But I think the fact that I'm here and I'm able to like kind of message a contact from Ubisoft as like a friend and be like, I have this really stupid idea for content, and not get ignored and blocked. I think that's the closest to like I've made it. It's like if I'm like, I've got this idea, we'll need a horse costume and a set, and it's for media and content, and they don't just go, you're fired. That's job security.
That's fair enough, and that's really something that I feel like it's a nice little step up to be going from that to, oh, I'm definitely just going to get aired or get ignored, to them actually sitting down and just going, yeah, let's do it.
I think it's like performing and is like anything. Like if a pro player went, I've reached my peak, you'd be like, they're over. And it's exactly the same for casting. It's exactly the same for performing. All the best casters across any esports, across any kind of thing, is the ones who keep working, the ones who keep going, all right, well, this is where I can tweak, this is what I can do. You're always working to improve.
So who's one person then you would still love to cast with that you haven't had the opportunity to yet?
Ooh, I would love to cast with Stokes, Sam, because he's so high energy, and I think when someone's really high energy, I work really well with them. So like demo, I always love casting my demo, because we just seem to like, when they're high energy, my casting style is kind of slow at points, but it's like an energetic level of slow. Like it's a tension building level of slow that's still kind of high energy. Because I do a lot of it with controlling of like shouting and voice structure and stuff like that, rather than like instead of going like that, I'm like like it's hard to explain, and that just sounds crazy. I'm a crazy person. But people like Stokes, who are so high energy, and they're so just like, everything's like amazing. They push it to another level. I think that it would be really fun to work with them. But also, yeah, I think if there was anyone, if I had to choose.
So, moving on to, the next few points, especially moving on to, from where you started is kind of where you are now, of if you were to go back to all the way when you first applied to ESL to become a community caster, did you ever envision you'd be where you are today?
Oh, no. No, not at all. Mainly because BUAL didn't exist back then. No, it was like a fun thing to do for a weekend, and it just kind of grew. And I enjoyed doing it. It was like fun, and I haven't lost that feeling of I'm really enjoying this. And I've just, I've been very lucky with some opportunities. The timing's been right for some others, and otherwise I've kept working, and I still think it's still surprising. I'll wake up one day and be back at a game.
And moving on, that's slightly connected to that, is there any event, you've got SI and so many other little majors. Is there a particular event, a particular moment that you would want to be casting in future?
Oh, it's a weird one because I want to do like everyone wants to do a final. Everyone wants to do SI final. Whether chat wants them to do it or not doesn't matter. But everybody wants to do SI final. The things that I love to cast from like a personal level rather than like I like the strange things. So like give me the E3 showdowns. Give me T-Pain slapping around a map with Bikini Bodhi. And that's the most fun that I think I have personally casting. Because I get to like be a little bit odd and cut back and have fun a little bit. I would love to do like I know Ubisoft do these internal tournaments. I think that would be a lot of fun because I would just rinse the hell out of them. And but those like weird events, give me more of those. Give me another Invitational, Des.
Another Halloweenies ball.
Yeah, give me another Halloweenies ball.
I mean, it's going from, considering now you do have a very big voice in Siege, in Pro Siege as well, just being just the stature that you are now, the position that you're in. Is there anything, especially with a lot of the drama going on recently, is there anything last year we had, every league had a different format. And then this year, everyone going to the same format, now following what APAC had. And is there anything you would still change about what there is now? It can be personal opinion of I only want there to be like 3 maps or all the maps.
Okay, so like just any structural changes?
Yeah, anything to do with the sport.
I would love. I spoke about this very briefly, actually related to the map pool. So I personally would love a more expanded map pool. Because as I said on the tweet, my personal favorite thing about Siege and what makes it the most interesting is seeing how the best minds and the best players approach the problems of maps and approach sites and approach things. And I 100% get why when it's a player poll, they vote to keep things that they're trained on and comfortable on and they know that they can perform on because you're playing for your career. You're playing for a huge amount of money. You want to be at your best. And if your best is on X map rather than Y map, you're always going to choose X map. But at the same time, from a viewer point of view, from a completely biased viewer and caster point of view, I love to see new places. I love to see new kind of performances. There's the feedback that comes from a lot of pros is I think in a good way it's very different to like how it used to be because it used to be a lot of negative and it used to be a lot of okay we need to quarantine this, we need to stop this. Now you're seeing pros kind of go, listen, Ubisoft, take the reins a little bit on this stuff. And I think that shows a great amount of trust that's developed over what Ubisoft's done for the players. And I'm purely speaking on their relationship with the players in terms of feedback on map pool, on operator quarantine, on yada yada. But it seems like from our perspective, the players have a lot more trust in Ubisoft's decision making now, to the point where they're saying, look, take the reins a little bit. Like, pull this back into your control now. We're happy with the quarantining. We're happy with how the maps are being changed to facilitate the comp and the game and the operators that you put forwards. Let's see something new.
I mean, something we were, throwing around with Jess yesterday, I can't remember if it was on stream or the conversation after, was how would you feel about putting a little bit of the new in with the old? And it's something that's been going around on Twitter as well, how would you feel, as a caster casting a 9 map pool, but with auto ban put back in?
I would enjoy it. I there's nothing I think that like can take the energy out of you more than seeing the same map over and over again. Like when you're like, it's Oregon. Oh, it's Oregon again. Oh, is that another?
Is that an Oregon?
Yeah, and it really does. And if it drains on you, whose job it is to love the game, whose job it is to get excited about the game, that reflects badly on not only the broadcast, but also when you're bored of it. The people who are like new viewers, the people who are like, maybe dipping their toe into esports, they don't want to see Oregon 10 times. They want to see the maps that they're familiar with. They want to see as much diversity in the pick and choice as possible.
Mhm.
They're here for a show, and sometimes we got to remember that.
Yeah. And we really should not have opened up that question to Chad either, because all it is Fortress and Tower and Bartlett.
Bartlett was a mistake. Bartlett was the map that players
it's a mistake
asked for.
we asked for.
Yeah.
It was the entire community going, "Oh, we love this
Can't be
map when it was
trusted.
filled with gas. It must be good in comp."
Yeah,
And then the second it's put in, everyone's like, "No, we
Yeah.
took it back. We're sorry."
It was purely because it was promised to us in the
Yeah.
very first roadmap. They were like, "Oh, Bartlett's coming as a map," and then I think they realized this is let's just hope everybody forgets about it.
Mm.
They didn't, because the Siege community is like that, and then it got put in, and then we went, this makes sense.
So what would be your favorite play story in Rainbow Six then? Sort of zero to hero in a way.
Oh,
I'll jump on that as well and going not only that but a team, because that's what you've been seeing a lot more.
yeah. Ooh, that's a tough one. There's a few players that always come to mind as ones that I've just enjoyed to watch. They're just fun to watch. In terms of climbing their way up and playing through. It's really tough. I mean, I'm always going to be biased to the UK name. So obviously people like Leon always jump in, because I think he's just such a positive force for the game. He's always a laugh. He's one of my favorite people in the scene. And I think that whole roster, the IDK story of IDK to Secret all the way up, and obviously the Vegas stuff, and they're just, for me, that felt, I guess, the first time that I was connected to a team. You looked at them playing and you were like, I know these guys. They remind me of me. They remind me of my backstory with this game. Obviously they're way more talented. But they're playing it, they're having fun, and it didn't feel so miles away. So I think I'm always gonna have a soft spot for the IDK to Secret kind of growth and story.
Yeah. And it's what do you think? We talked about your dream change to the EOL or to competitive in general, and what do you think needs to be done to kind of, from the pure stance of making it a show, making it a spectacle to watch instead of something to play, and what would you kind of change about Siege or the esports to make it a bit more casual, audience friendly?
This is a dangerous question. You're asking me dangerous questions that if they get clips, I'll lose my job. It's such a big question. I agree that there's a lot of downtime, and Siege. This isn't just me saying I have a hard job. I gotta preface that. Other casters from other games, big names, and the ones that have come to Siege have said Siege is one of the hardest games to cast, if not the hardest, because it's almost impossible to really know where everybody is and why they're doing what they're doing. So a lot of play-by-play in Siege is actually paying more attention to where everybody else is rather than who you're watching. So you can be okay, well, they're pushing in from here and they're doing this and this. And that's really hard to translate to a casual viewer, is jumping around perspectives on a map. If you're not too familiar with it, you're like, where the hell has Medics or Easy taken me now? Where are we? I think having multiple observers would go a long way in helping to facilitate that, because it takes trying to make a narrative from a sandbox into multiple different in-game directors or observers building narratives around things. We can have someone paying attention to the Star Fracker, the Shaiko, the whatever. We can have someone paying more attention towards where the diffuser is at all times, so we can see how that's shaping up. And I guess that twinned with a map space would be good. But I don't know. It's tough. It's so tough. Like, I don't know. It's way above my pay grade. Um, those are the things that, from my perspective, I think it would make my job easier
Yeah.
to explain. Like, you
Mm.
try and cast as if you're explaining to like your grandparents.
Yeah.
That's the line that you hear a lot about casting, and
Mm.
you in Siege, it's tough. Siege is very tough. So more observing.
Who do you think, who sorry, I've started now.
That's fine.
Who
Pressure's on.
do you think, a lot of community casters, I'm sure that you've watched a lot, especially with you can Div 2, where there's other community leagues. Is there anyone who's up and coming talent from either UK Div 2, whether it's, little events here and there? Is there anyone that really catches your eye as someone who could, given the right nourishment, could be
Um,
at the top?
it's kind of tough because unfortunately I don't get a huge amount of time to really deep dive into other casters and into other like up and comers.
Mm,
It's one of the I guess it's a good moment in my career that I
mm,
was able to like step away from Yukon, and I'm gonna say I stepped away. They said we're not having you back
mm,
because we're gonna try new talent, and I was like, that's fine, that's good. I'm very happy because Yukon was where I like cut my teeth. Like that was my first like proper like series.
mm,
Um, so like all the new names that are there, like Jerry, Nova, Grace, and Dino,
mm,
like I think their stuff's good, and a lot of where their nerves are and a lot of shaping who they are as casters, I saw in the same stuff that I used to cast when I was doing my first
mm,
season of Prem. I think once they get past the final, they'll be able to pull themselves around. In
mm,
terms of like recent unknown people that I've seen,
mm,
um, I thought the energy Whippet, who was
mm.
doing the Epic Clan stuff,
Yeah.
his energy was really good in it in a couple of clips that I saw. It's hard. How do you define
Mm,
an up and comer? We didn't even really have up and comers in our scene
mm,
before because it was so like locked in at the
yeah.
top. And then we were like, hey, his forecast is okay. Here's like 20.
Mm.
Um,
But I
th-
don't think I got to work with Whippet for Epic Land because I worked with McCready, Delta, and I think that and Toodles,
mm.
and I didn't get to work with Whippet. And he brings the energy that is really needed.
Yeah, well, I think I guess I will always look at casters that are similar to me, and I'll be like, oh, I really like that. As I said, like why I'd love to work with Stokes is because high energy, and I
Mm,
think I respond well as a caster to that. I know that there's, the UK is. I'm entirely biased about this opinion.
Mm.
There's not hiding that. The UK, I think, has some of the best casting talent around,
yeah.
especially in our lower regions. Do not get me wrong. We are speaking our first language.
Yeah.
We have a huge advantage over, like the stuff that Hap, who
Mm,
casts at tier 1 and is not his first language. I think I would never be able to do that. I can barely
mm,
speak English. But because of that, like our talent pool has grown. I think it shows in the fact that there's a lot of us that are like now in tier 1.
mm,
Obviously we used to do all of the CL stuff as well. Like that was generally all of us.
mm,
So I think we have a really good healthy scene of casters. And there's a lot of names that I recognize in and amongst the scene. The people that are great for analysis, I'll never really be the best one to judge that because
mm,
I barely know what I'm doing in the game most of the time. But I know like some people that have comp experience, like Kem, is looking into casting and stuff like that. And
mm,
I know Jayosa, who has the deepest voice I think I've ever heard, was looking into casting. So there's always like a growing talent pool from Siege.
mm.
So, what would you say your favourite moment is within esports then? Both that you've taken a part of and others that you might have just watched.
Oh, okay, including watched Paris 2018.
Mhm.
It's just a lot, just so much. Like every good story that you want to happen from an esports tournament
Mhm.
happened in Paris 2018.
Mm,
Like it just, it was like perfect. You have the reverse sweep, you have these big bold clutches, you have the underdog story. You have demo not having his luggage. It's like, yeah, that as like a viewer was the best. And in terms of like my personal experience of being there and working, I think Paris Studio, I just had a lot of fun. It was so weird to say because it was like one of my first like majors. So there was no pressure for me. I was a last minute fill in.
Yeah.
I was so last minute I wasn't even announced. The cameras literally went up and I was there on the cameras, which was quite funny. But that's a whole other story.
To be fair, with Paris 2018, wasn't that the first time? Wasn't that when Penta transformed to G2?
It was
I
just
think
after.
I think it was a few days before. Was it not?
I
Because
can't
that's when
remember.
they first lifted the only time we've seen the
Maybe.
Blitz trophy used.
Maybe. Yes.
Yeah.
John. Oh, I can see chat. John's in chat and he says yes. Am I allowed
Yeah.
to read chat or should I pretend they don't exist like I usually do
You
on a
go
podcast?
ahead. It's being filled with some absolute
chat.
bangers.
What's up? How you doing? What's your favorite esports moment?
I think
won't judge
everyone's
you
just
if you actually
debating right
scream.
now how to sport esports.
Paris is great. Paris was a huge amount of fun. John, who is in chat, is. I have a lot of love for John. I think anyone who's interacted with him in the scene, he is the reason. Like for me, saying like the UK scene is like the best, and the CL scene is the best. He is one of the major reasons that the UK scene is so solid, and I will kill anybody who says otherwise. I won't, but I'll be mouthy about it, I guess.
It's who would we're trying to just go up and find it, but we're kind of running. We've shot through these fairly quickly.
I'm sorry. Do you want me to long out my answers?
No, it's fine.
Do you want me to talk more rubbish?
Actually,
it's literally my job.
That's something that I was kind of curious about. Something you haven't actually gotten to ask. What's your feeling on Div 2s for nationals? Because you have it's not only the UK that has it.
Yeah.
You do have, but every other country goes by a different name. So whether it's the UK is UK in Div 2, France, Germany, they have their own separate ones. They're called, I can't remember what they're called. But yeah, what is your opinion, especially on the National League format as well? Because we all had that drama with why does Germany or why does these regions have like 4 PL teams?
Yeah, well, I think that's. It's like it's a really good idea, but the implementation was shaky, and I guess I can only really talk from the perspective that I have. I am in no way privy to any of the discussions about how this stuff gets formulated. There's hundreds and thousands of conversations that happen behind closed doors about events that may never even happen or things that may never even come to fruition. How much of that's related to the last year or not as well, it doesn't make it easy. Like they announced all of these major changes that on paper sounded pretty sick.
Yeah.
And then the world got pretty sick. And and that dampens things. I think it's a good thing. I think a logical progression makes sense. But it also has the doors open to Cinderella stories. Like you look at
wasn't Koana the most recent?
Koana is a very good one. I have entirely forgotten, and this is bad because this is my job. The team that swanned through the qualifiers for SI?
Makers. Yes.
Makers are a team that is like battered on the door of the top flight for a long time. And I think to have the National League system gives them a place to still keep practicing, and then gives them the opportunity they can still qualify for SI and they can still do this under it. So I think it's good. I don't think there needs to be like 4 or 5. I've heard that some regions have many. I think the UK system is good in that we have our Premier League, and then we have the feeder league where you can play in different ways to get into that feeder league. And then from then on, there's nothing else outside of that. There are other competitions. Sure, there's little kind of tournaments, but the league system is very simple. And I think that leads to a good thing, because if you create too many barriers, say you have a really great team that qualifies for like third UKIN, like UKIN 3, then they've got like 2 years until they can climb up. And if they have one good player, that player is just going to get picked up and moved to a different roster, and that roster will fall apart. If you keep it short, and it's a much shorter jump between getting there and then up, the roster's more likely to stay together. They're more likely to see some chance at growth and opportunity, and they're more likely to try and make their way through. And I think that's like, the longer you make that string, the more likely it is to just get cut before you reach the end. Like,
Yeah.
that makes sense. String analogy.
Yeah. So, what would you say some of the most valuable skills you've learned casting would be?
A lot of tech problems I can fix. I once had to produce a CCS show, and that's the most stressed I've ever been in my entire career. In that I made the mistake of, like, I think it was Simon, his internet went down, blonde, and I made the mistake as I always wanted to show up on a set and be able to like offer a hand. I think you should always try and be useful. And I said, I've used OBS. I can maybe do it. This is the most stressed I've ever been. But no, outside of that, I think it's like, if you want a career in casting, it's to always be willing to grow, and be thankful, I think. It's a very tough industry. And this was a topic and a conversation not too long ago that happened on the timeline. Is that it's not easy, esports, in any sense of the word. Like, even at the top, you're still petitioning for jobs, you're still auditioning for work, and you're never ever set in stone. And other people's opportunities come from being in the right place at the right time. My opportunities have come from being in the right place at the right time. Originally, I wasn't supposed to be in Paris. I wasn't supposed to do any of the tier 1 stuff. But people couldn't make it to Paris. My name was put forward as one on a list, and I could. And then from being able to do that and showing up and doing that performance, from having a good rapport and reputation with other people that I'd worked with before, like Jess, like Des, and like, some of the people at Face It or Yubi and stuff who pushed me forward. Like, I'm going to say John. I don't know if he did, but I'm assuming he did, because he's great like that. That's where my opportunities came from. And in that time, like, of course, like earlier on in the year, I was very disappointed that we'd lost out on doing Challenger League. We'd lost out on a lot of work. But you have to be able to live with that. You have to be able to like live with rejection and want to keep going and want to keep grinding, because that never ends. I'm gonna say that now. Budding casters, like, you're always working, and you gotta do it for the love of it. Like, you gotta stay positive. If your friends are getting work over you, be happy for them, and earnestly be happy for them. Like, if you want to find some happiness out of a decision, it hurts, but your friends are getting work, like, and I think it takes some learning that.
Is that kind of the same advice you'd give to people starting out or in the tier 4 scene when casting?
Yeah, I mean, it's always advice that I give is like, if you lose sight on that it's an industry and it's a job, then you kind of lose, you get in your own head about stuff, and when you doubt that, you doubt yourself, and you'll doubt your performance, and your performance will suffer anyway. And I know it's something that I said in this discussion is like, it's related, is like, you're always hired based on your reputation, mixed with talent. Like, they're equally important. And tournament organizers, producers, they'll look at how you're viewed in the scene. They'll look at your socials. They'll look at and listen to what other people who have worked with you have said, and then hire you because of that. So like, you're getting into this from the ground up because you're passionate about doing it, and because you want to do it, and you have to hold on to that. And and you've always got to act like, you've always got to bring that level of professionalism to it, I think. And it's like, I'm not saying don't go for it. If it's what you want to do, amazing. Do it. It's great fun. It's esports. You surround your world with something that you love,
Mhm.
but also you got to be ready
Yeah.
to you got to be ready for that stuff. And I know that some people take it a little bit personally,
Mm.
and it's tough at times, no denying, but like you have to be ready for that stuff.
So we are coming up to that time, just around. So we are going to open up, questions for the community within reason, as we do say every time. But yeah, one thing I think is get on to more, what's happening in the here and now. I think going back to the Twitter sphere of roster mania.
Mm-hmm. I know
But-
nothing.
No, as in that's already been announced.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's what we're getting at. Well, what would you say? Because obviously there would have been some insight before they were announced. What would you say the most shocking one was for you that's been announced so far?
Shocking. I wouldn't say any of the EU changes is shocking to me so far, apart from, I guess, Pengu retiring
Mm.
is okay. Yeah, Pengu retiring is the most shocking because of how monumental he is to the game. Obviously, with stuff that I may have known and not known before, doesn't matter because it's the biggest figure in the game has retired from the game, and he defined a generation of our game. He was the most viewed kind of pro content creator. He was the one that everybody knew. He's grown with the game as well. And this was another Twitter thread that was like, "Oh, who have you seen that's kind of grown up as like a content creator?" And he was a name that was mentioned because, yeah, he admits it himself. He used to be he used to be a little shit, and now he's such a great guy. He's really kind of mellowed out. He's grown with the game and grown with the scene. He's turned into someone that I think the Siege community is so lucky to have as a figurehead, as someone who's talking a lot of sense, as someone who's bringing a lot of joy to the game. I'm very excited to see where he goes next. I was obviously one of the people that was like, "Hey, we need you on a desk right now," and I think whatever he's going to do is going to succeed at. But in terms of a shocking revelation, it has to be Pengu's departure because that is literally, it's not even the end of a chapter. That's the closing of a book, and now we're starting the post Pengu. It's like BC AD before Pengu, after departure. I'm whatever. I'm not paid to make funny right now.
So, if you could experience one moment in Siege history live, which moment would it be?
Ooh, like a previous event.
Any event, any Siege event.
I guess at like SI 2018 in Paris, I think would be good. Oh, Paris 2018 even. SI finals are getting bigger and bigger. Obviously this year not counting, because it was postponed. But like seeing that reverse sweep and the energy in the room must have been insane. I've heard really good things about the Latin America major. I've heard that the audience live was just unparalleled, so I think that'd be good. And I guess selfishly, the one in Japan because I wanted to go to Tokonami. So that's a selfish one though. That's more like I want to go there so I can see Japan.
I mean, I'm going to ask you the same thing, Santa, but for me, it's definitely 2018 Invitationals. 3-map reverse sweep from Penta to EG, purely off of one Monty strat that changed the momentum of the entire series. And yeah, for me, that's definitely one of the things I would have loved to go live.
It's got to be 2020 Invitationals. Fnatic going in and just destroying Empire and G2 was just.
Aussie.
What event was it that Dizzle jumped in and they wiped EG and then Penta got the biggest undefeated streak in rounds? I forgot which one that was. It might have been Paris actually. Because Peter was there. Not Peter.
Dizzle's shown up a few times.
Yeah.
But he used to play. He was
Mm.
like, and he like took a step back to be like, I need to let the roster grow. No, man, you're the GOAT. Get on, play, win.
It was great because who was EG's coach at the time? I've completely forgotten.
BKN was.
No, they just switched off of Bacon. It's it's got a missing people. I remember the VOD where the coach wasn't allowed on stage because it was too close to the event, and that was an amazing stream. I think that was it not Paris? Yeah, I don't know, I remember it being a big stage.
I don't know if that was Fnatic. I think Fnatic was later.
Mm.
I think the Fnatic one was year after. I don't know. I'm all about the future. This is my excuse for not knowing things.
Mm. He just got Mr. Officer built different.
Yeah, that's true.
Mr. Officer has been a beast in UKIN.
Oh, I love him. Like, I know I alluded to this on the stream last night when I was casting. I think he's gonna be one of our best exports to the world scene. I think, like, he's just he's like good. He's funny. He's got a great energy about him. And he's just there to have a good time. And he's obviously, the team and him are doing very, very well, very supportive of each other. I'm excited to like introduce him to the world or have him introduce himself because he's doing a damn fine job of that so far.
Especially with the Kendry pickup now as well off Navi.
Yes,
that's
going to be.
You got Kenny.
Very interesting.
The UK's all over the shop nowadays.
I mean, yeah, you've got Kayak going to G2 from Koala. You've got Kenny going to Koala. I mean, it's great to see, and I can't imagine what state Navi would have been in if Kendra was still playing.
Navi's like, they've gone through a lot of changes. They've kind of really tried because it was a really talented roster that just never really found itself again since kind of Citizen left. It was always felt like they were a little bit uncomfortable and weren't quite set in. But the talent of the players in the roster is like, I'm excited to see where they all go. Really. But
yeah, I think we're all out of questions and almost all out of time.
Wow.
It's been a quick.
It goes quick.
It does.
It does.
It goes fast so quickly. But yeah, thank you everyone in chat who has come today. It's been absolutely great. Thank you so much, Em, for coming on board with us for our final day. It's been absolutely amazing. Thank you, Santa, for joining me all week. And thank you to Badass for this lovely event. So I think that concludes it. There will be some announcement coming along later this week and early next week about the upcoming season. So thanks for everyone here at Badass. And thank you again to Em and Santa. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.